have some breaking NBA news as the Timberwolves. They went big fish hunting. I told you and Marisa that this would happen.
I know.
I told you. The Timberwolves clearly on edge with Anthony Edwards, wanting to get over the top with Anthony Edwards, and they make a big move to help Anthony Edwards. LaMelo Ball is going to the Minnesota Timberwolves, this courtesy of Shams Charania. Charlotte Hornets trading star LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Timberwolves for Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps, 28, 29, and 30, and 3 second-round picks, 29, 32, and 33. Look, this is clearly from a Minnesota standpoint. They said, we have to do something. We have to shake it up. And I guarantee you part of their thought is, can we finally get a guard, a point guard, that can get the ball out of Ant Edwards' hands?
Yeah.
So that's their logic. But it is a lot. Even without the pick swaps, throw those away. An unprotected one in 2033 plus Naz Reid for LaMelo Ball, who I think some in the league, many in the league, may say, he's not a winning player. I think that's going to feel like a lot. We'll see if it is or not. I do wonder, though, Edwards and Ball in a backcourt. LaMelo Ball probably isn't going to be able to guard Aaron one-on-one, or you or me. He does not play defense. So that's part of it. But, man, this is a holy blockbuster. It's a lot to give up, at least on paper. At the same time, LaMelo Ball headed to join forces with Ant Edwards.
Yeah, shocked to say the least. I certainly agreed with you that the Timberwolves were going to go big fish hunting this offseason. But as an Anthony Edwards fan, I was really hoping that it would be a different big fish. And I just don't know how well LaMelo Ball is going to work with Anthony Edwards as the on-ball player. And this comes just days after a $20 million a year, $100 million extension for Ayo Dosunmu in Minnesota as well. A huge backup of guards here for the Timberwolves. And with that Ayo extension, they also sent Julius Randle to the Nets, returning only second-round picks. Nick Claxton, part of that trade as well, but went to the Bulls. There's not a lot of big help in Minnesota right now. It's Rudy Gobert at the center position. I would imagine with those contracts and now adding LaMelo Ball, Jaden McDaniels is going to play your 4, and then you start all 3 guards. Is that the game plan now? You're not playing Ayo that much money to come off the bench, and you're certainly not trading all of that for LaMelo Ball for him not to start. So I think it's certainly an interesting lineup here. And then conversely, for the Hornets, you finally had something here with an exciting young core who was the best team in basketball over the last month of the regular season when you had this lineup figured out. And now you move off of LaMelo Ball for Naz Reid and a few picks. I don't think this trade makes much sense for either team, quite frankly, right now. And I'm shocked, A, the Hornets were that inclined to move LaMelo Ball, and B, the Timberwolves were willing to give up that much.
Here's why the Hornets won this trade. Right now. They won it right now. They won this trade because LaMelo Ball misses a ton of time. In 2022-2023, he played 36 games. The year after, 22 games. The year after, 47 games. The year after, in this past year, 72. Like, he finally got up there, and he made an impact. He played 28 minutes a night, 41% from the field, including 37% from 3. He finished with 20 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds. Like, productive player, but hasn't been able to stay healthy. And I think that's it. So it's questionable defense. Is he a winning player? Health. And the Hornets said, we got a good year out of him, and we can get a good offer for him. There's more interest here than we realized. Let's do it. They added in the draft. They added to their team in their draft. They have a good culture and a good young nucleus. I think they really believe in Brandon Miller, and who wouldn't? I always wondered if they could offload LaMelo Ball and when they would be able to find a team that would do it. I think this makes a ton of sense. And so, like, right now, initial reaction, I totally understand why the Hornets did this, because they're selling high on a guy that did not have this kind of value a year ago.
That's certainly true. That's certainly true. And if you do believe in Brandon Miller as the key of this franchise, obviously Contipelli showing you more than I think you ever could have really believed in.
Guys.
Absolutely.
Contipelli
and you run with those two. You went and spent money on Kobe White this offseason. You drafted Christian Anderson in the draft. So you have some guard help coming, young, exciting players. So I do believe in the Hornets and what they're doing here. That core was so exciting. And the young players together were having a blast out there. And the first thing that really jumps off the page for me here on the Timberwolves side of things, obviously Naz Reid and the questions at the front court there, but 2033 unprotected first-round pick. What do you think the chances are Anthony Edwards is playing for the Timberwolves in the 2032 season? Or LaMelo Ball?
There's a chance, but it's
But
not.
it has to go. This has to work. This has to go really well.
For both of those guys to be there, they'll have had to have won a championship.
I agree. So if you're the Timberwolves, you're trading a pick to build a team right now that I guess you believe is a championship contender. I certainly don't, looking at this roster right now. But now that pick is unprotected years down the line when feasibly none of this exciting core will even be on the team to determine where it lies in the draft.
I think a couple of things. One, you're telling yourself, we're going to do whatever we can to keep Ant. So that's probably top of mind. And
Timberwolves have had a lot of success keeping stars in Minnesota.
That's why they do. They kept Kevin way longer, though.
But that was some twisted loyalty more than anything else.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. But you look at their history, and this is what they do. You know, like the Marbury, Kevin Garnett, and then they go get this guy, and they go. Like, they tried. They went that route. Sprewell in the Timberwolves. Like, that's something that happened to try to keep Garnett, and that's what these teams do. That's what these organizations do, and I think that's it. They felt the pressure. They looked around the league. I'm sure they called on Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did, and they went with the big element there. On the surface, I understand this. There needs to be more. And Ant Edwards is awesome and could end up being the best player on the planet. Like, that's still a realistic possibility for him to become that. And so that needs to happen. And maybe getting the ball out of his hands some, where he doesn't have to play point guard and he can be Kobe. Maybe that's the logic. Can LaMelo play with Ant? Like, can LaMelo facilitate? Not just get assists. That's different. Assist numbers and actually facilitating the offense, running the offense, two far different things. Like being a point guard. Can he do that? Can he limit his turnovers? Can he play winning basketball? I think that's a very real question that he's going to have to answer. If those things happen, like, can this work out? Like, I see the path to it working out. I think LaMelo is a lot of fun. I think he can be efficient if he plays a bit smarter, and playing alongside Anthony Edwards, a superstar. He's the best player he's ever played with, by far.
No question.
So could Ant get the most out of LaMelo, and could LaMelo, in his ability to run point, potentially impact Ant in a positive way? Maybe. But there's no doubt about it, there's a risk. And I do wonder if they're going to try to make another move. Do they go LeBron shopping? Do they do that? I don't know. I doubt LeBron wants to go to Minnesota.
Apparently, Giannis was open to it. It came out afterwards that Minnesota was the third team Giannis was willing to sign an extension with. It was Celtics and Heat, which were talked about a ton, and obviously it ended up in Minnesota. But his camp put out afterwards that he was open to signing a Minnesota extension. So maybe the allure of Anthony Edwards is bigger than the market is small.
Yeah. And that's when it would make sense. Like, if you could have LaMelo and Giannis.
Man.
Right? But that's not happening.
You wouldn't have those picks to trade for LaMelo if you trade him for Giannis. Like,
no doubt. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do all the pick swaps and all of those things. And by the way, I think the Hornets probably take less, but apparently there was a bit of a bidding war for LaMelo's services. Now, what that was, who knows? But I think that the Hornets, this is a very safe play. I get why. Off-ramp. They've had problems with this car, the LaMelo Ball car, staying healthy, staying on the road. They were like, hey, it's a fun car. It's great. But it's been running well, and the market for this car has gone up. So let's get off of this thing now. And on the other side, Minnesota's like, hey, he's got a ton of talent. He was the third overall pick in the 2020 draft. Should have went second behind Ant Edwards. Let's combine these two guys and see if it helps.
Yeah, no, it certainly could work. And I think it is feasible, and there's a clear path to how it does. And just taking a look here, exactly what you were saying, LaMelo's role that he's going to have to play in Minnesota is more that facilitator. Ant's obviously going to be the dominant scorer, be that guy you go to at the end of the shot clock, which we saw happen towards the end of this year in Charlotte. As they moved away from LaMelo as that main player, more towards Contipelli, more towards Brandon Miller. LaMelo even came off the bench a little bit towards the end of the season. But looking at this Hornets roster through the 2026 regular season, removing low leverage situations, LaMelo Ball had the biggest change to offensive rating for the Hornets when on or off the court. He was a plus 13.1 when he was on the court. The Hornets, a 126 offensive rating when LaMelo was on the floor for them this past season in the regular season, which was fifth best in the league when LaMelo was on the court, or would be fifth best in the league if you just go when LaMelo is on the court. And that's something that I really makes me more excited about this trade, because as you saw Con take all those threes and break records this year, as you saw Brandon Miller continue to grow and be that on-ball threat in Charlotte that got them to the play-in and almost to the playoffs, LaMelo took a back seat as the scorer. Even the assist numbers went down, but that facilitation, that offense as a whole got a lot better. So I do think he's open to that role, and I also think getting traded like this as a former top prospect, big name, top draft pick,
kind of is a check to the ego a little bit and maybe encourages him to want to win a little bit more, to shift into that winning player instead of chasing numbers and things along those lines, which I do think we've seen a little bit over the last few years, but maybe a move like this can force that hand a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if they – do you think he's a winning player? Because this is like a real debate. Like if he's on the court, does LaMelo Ball help you win? Because Contipelli got there, Brandon Miller when he's out there. Like it was very obvious why Charlotte changed. And LaMelo did change, and he was more efficient, and he wasn't turning the ball over as much. And he, in the on-off court numbers, really meant like he impacted them winning. If you look at that, but there is years now where people are like, he just like NBA people are like, he just puts up numbers and does whatever he wants out there and treats it like it's AAU on a Saturday.
I think that's how he's been through his career. I think that can change. And I think we saw it last year when the team got competitive. And that's the thing about the Hornets. Sure, he might not be a winning player because he didn't carry them on their own. Last year was the first time the Hornets were competitive in the LaMelo Ball era. And maybe there's an expectation that he does it on his own as a draft pick that high. But now that he had some help around him, we saw that shift towards the back half of last year to taking some off of his own plate, distributing to everyone else, and doing whatever it takes role-wise to help a team win. And I think that'll just continue in Minnesota. I think he has a long way to go to get there. But I think when you have a guy of Anthony Edwards, who, in my opinion, is one of the best pure winners in the NBA in terms of doing anything it takes to get there, I think it's going to be great for LaMelo. And if there's a chance for it to work, there's a much better chance he becomes a winning player in Minnesota than Charlotte.
Just for those in the YouTube chat, I'm putting it in there now. Who won the LaMelo Ball trade? Timberwolves, Hornets, poll, just hit start. There we go. So we'll dive into those results coming up in a bit. I will say the graphic is fire.
Yeah.
LaMelo in the Timberwolves uniform, fire, and we will see.
Huge round of applause to the Timberwolves rebrand this offseason. Unbelievable work.
Sometimes you just go back to what worked, and that one.
Sometimes you got to go back to go forward.
Are they going forward? I will say that the highlights of those two are going to be awesome.
Yes.
Will they win? I'm not sure.
It's going to be very fun to watch. I would be floored if this is the last move the Timberwolves are making. Hornets, I guess with all those assets, certainly opens the door for them to continue to add as well as players become available. But I do not think this is the last move the Timberwolves will make.
Jaylen Brown?
Ooh.
Just throwing it out there.
Could
the Hornets do that and they go that route and they try to add after subtracting and go get a guy that they think could help them right now?
I don't
Who
hate
knows?
that. One I heard last night for Jaylen Brown, potentially under the radar, Utah Jazz. I think that makes a lot of sense. Have a lot of assets, have a big the Celtics are searching for. It was 100-1 last night, 11-1 this morning. So certainly some movement there.
The other one floating is Detroit and Kawhi. So who knows?
They've just unloaded Isaiah Stewart's contract. Now they have space for it.